We're beginning the second hour of Morning Focus by focusing on a remarkable honour for a West Clare woman who began her education in a small primary school near Mullock and has since gone on to make an international impact in science. Nuclear scientist, or nuclear, as our friends across the water would say, Claire Gallery Strong has been awarded an MBE by England's King Charles for her services to nuclear science. A founding member of Women in Nuclear and a former student of St Michael's Community College in Kilmihil, Claire has spoken of her pride in her West Clare roots and the influence of her late father and brother in shaping her career. And I am delighted to say that the aforementioned Claire Gallery Strong joins me now. Claire, a very good morning to you.
Oh, Gaurav Mahagut, Alan, and thank you to your listeners as well for having me on to celebrate this wonderful moment.
Yeah, and indeed, on that, congratulations. How did you feel when you found out that you were to be honoured by King Charles?
Look, I was absolutely overwhelmed. There was a few tears. And a really special hug with my husband Barry. Just a moment of silence. Just overcome. I mean, I don't know if you can hear in my voice. I'm still shocked.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at you now, and your eyes look fairly watery, Claire.
There's been tears, definitely tears of absolute joy, though. And you know what? I should be privileged to be invited on to talk to all of you this morning as well. That's made me so excited.
Some would say, and I know I'm biasing this, that's the biggest honour of all, Claire.
It is. I am absolutely in agreement with you, Alan. Thank you. And there's so many of my family and friends who've been in touch that have been congratulating me from Claire. So they'll all be listening this morning as well. Fair
play to you, Claire. You said that with a straight voice and a straight face. So we appreciate that. But how do you find out that you are to receive any sort of award from the British Empire, from the King of England, be it MBE, CBE, OBE? Do you get a phone call? Do you just does a letter drop in your letterbox? So how does it work?
Well, I can't, but anything but I'll say it has to come by Royal Mail, of course.
Oh, of course.
I did get a letter and it dropped in the mailbox in the middle of all the other stuff that comes through before Christmas. So imagine the scene, a pile of parcels, bills, etc., etc. And I was just very fortunate that my husband Barry was on the case, and he pulled the envelope out and thought, this looks a little important. And he managed to put it straight into my hands when I walked in the door after a week away on travel, and got me to open it. And I was shocked. I couldn't even get past the first few sentences, and I just sat down holding the letter in absolute silence. And after about 10 minutes, he said, if you're not going to read the letter, could I read it?
And so you got that news before Christmas, which, you know, look, most of us look forward to Christmas. It's a great time to be with friends and family and so on. But to have that news in your back pocket must have been the best way possible to head into the Christmas period.
Oh, my goodness, Alan. It was so tough, though. Because I met my brother Noel Scarrett, my brother-in-law, he was 60 before Christmas, and we all joined together in London to have a 60th celebration for my brother-in-law, and I couldn't tell anybody, so I'd sit on my hands in the room with, you know, trying not to say I've got this exciting news. So it was tough, very exciting but tough.
And generally speaking, Claire, how are you with secrets? Are you let the cat out? Want to let the cat out of the bag? Was this a particularly difficult time for you to not say anything?
I have to say that when you work in the nuclear industry, you get used to keeping some things quiet, private.
Okay, that is fair enough. And what is the process then? Because I would imagine when you receive a letter on, you know, an MBE, OBE, CBE, whatever it might be, they want to sound you out as to, you know, you have to accept it first, because they don't want to be shown up on the day. They want to guarantee people are going to accept it. So have you had to be in touch or respond via letter to say, yes, I'm delighted to accept this?
So I did, and incredibly enough, the day that my husband handed me the letter was the day I actually had to make the response by. So by the time I got over the shock and actually read the letter, I realised I had to run upstairs and send a reply straight away, because otherwise I would miss the closing date. So that was quite tough. And then they ring. So the Cabinet Office rang me, and you know, that was a really interesting call, because I was in my workplace. I realised it was Cabinet Office, and I went in a meeting room because I knew I had to keep this very quiet. and they read out to me the reasons I'd been given the MBE, and it was absolutely overwhelming. They would say something, and I'd go, "Oh yes, that was me." I was tearing. And then they'd say another thing, and I'd go, "Yes, that was me too."
It's a nice reminder of how great you are.
Honestly, I so don't think I'm great, and I'm very grounded. My children will pull me back down to earth if I was to think I was great.
Well, look, well deserved. And when do you receive it? Or, we see the ceremonies of, formerly Queen Elizabeth and now King Charles tipping people on the shoulder with a sword. Is that specifically for the OBE? Is the MBE you just get the medal, or how does it all work? And when?
So I don't know yet. That's another exciting part. There's an office that will get in touch with me at some point and talk about dates for ceremonies. So I do know I'll go to one of the royal palaces and it'll be a member of the royal family, but I think it'll be a fairly, a serious occasion with I'll have to bring my West Clare humour and lighten it up a little bit. But I'm not expecting a sword, a medal, a beautiful medal. And I think, this moments like this, though, talking to you all back home in Clare, this is really special for me to be celebrating, with my people. So thank you so much.
No, we're only too delighted to facilitate and to hear your story as well, Claire. So let's hear more on that. You're a farmer's daughter from West Clare. I mean, talk to us about growing up and attending primary school, and when were you bitten by the science bug, or what route did you travel down, and at what point towards becoming a nuclear scientist, of all things?
No, I've never. Who would have thought it? That's what I say. Growing up as a farmer's daughter, who would have thought I'd end up a nuclear scientist? I didn't think it. So I suppose, a small primary school in Scrapple, teachers that maybe had that more time to stretch their pupils. I remember Miss Colleen giving me extra maths to do because it was to stretch me and to test my kind of boundaries a bit more. And then on to St. Michael's at Kilmihil. And, in the backdrop of all this, father, Christy Gallery, my dad was very much a thoughtful man, and he would make certain he explained things to us. So things like when we went to help get water in from the well, when our water failed one day, he explained how the pressure worked and how we created a vacuum to create water flow. So my dad was very good at helping think things through, and great curiosity as well, of course. And then my brother Richie going to or Dr. Galleries, I should say. I'm very proud of him. My brother Richie going off to do engineering was, again, a big influence in my life. But school and educators in school were really important. And I'd like to shout out for some of the teachers from particularly Kilmihil. I could shout out for all of them, but for three in particular, as Patrick O'Dwyer was one of my teachers who really sort of challenged me and got me to be ambitious and thinking ambitiously, I would say. And Christy Curtin was my science teacher. And you'll know, of course, people will know Christy was also a county councillor. And Christy was a big influence in the sense of seeing somebody who had his education role, but also volunteering and giving community service in that county councillor role too. And then Larry Blake was my headmaster. And Larry was a big champion. And by a strange kind of quirk of how things worked out, I had gone to school a little bit earlier than standard, and I wasn't allowed to do the state exams because I was too young. And Larry Blake took on a personal mission to petition the State Department, and he read out the letter to me one day, and it said, "Why would you hold back my exceptional student for the sake of a few days of birth?" And he was successful, and I went on to do my Leaving Cert and on to UCG to do science.
For people, Claire, who may not be familiar with your field, and I think, look, there'll be some people, their knowledge of nuclear science mightn't stretch much beyond Homer going to work at the nuclear power plant in Springfield in The Simpsons. How would you explain what you do as a nuclear scientist in simple terms?
So it sounds serious, doesn't it? That's kind of, one of the things I would say is it's not as serious as it sounds. I think it's really important that safety is really, really important, and safety is very much at the forefront of how people think in nuclear science. But having worked in other sectors, so I worked in environmental field, I worked in pharmaceuticals, and commissioning a new anti-cancer drug, and then I moved into the nuclear sector. And the fundamental principles of science are the most important things about it. What else would I say? My day job is I look after essential services, infrastructure, making certain that we have access to the right chemicals, to water. So it's less opaque than it sounds. I think the word sounds big, but it's the same sort of things that you do in every other sector. And you know, I found that transfer from pharmaceuticals, which is a very safety conscious, highly regulated industry, to nuclear was very similar.
Yeah, and I think it's actually good to hear you describing your role, Claire, because I think, and you've touched on it, the nuclear industry can sometimes be quite misunderstood or even controversial. You know, when people hear the word nuclear, they think of nuclear war and a big mushroom cloud and all that. So what do you wish the public better understood about nuclear science and the importance of its role today?
So, huge amount of opportunity for nuclear in terms of being able to bring energy cheaply, carbon free. So that's sort of that net carbon zero and impact on the world. I mean, such a small amount of material can produce such a huge amount of energy. So one thing I'd like people just to be open-minded about, I'd ask you, look at the facts. So many countries around the world are very interested in how they expand their sort of nuclear field. And I think it's part of the mix that we have in terms of solar, water. So my ask of people really would just be being open-minded and looking at the science and the facts and being willing to listen, because it's not for any one of us to say this one thing is better than another, but it is an opportunity to use a different form of energy to help create that reduced impact on sort of the world.
And given over the last number of years, once Russia invaded Ukraine and there was issues with getting oil from Russia, and we've seen the US go into Venezuela, I'm sure they would say to bring, spread democracy. Some would say it's to get their hands on their oil. And we here in Ireland are thinking about other ways in which to power the country. Do you think that nuclear energy needs to be given more of a fair hearing or a more fair shake of the stick?
Look, I think it's very important that people see it's an option as a solution. Whether Ireland chooses to go that way is very much for, the people who are living resident who want to take a voice in that decision. I mean, you just look at what we'd say about some of the other countries. Now, America has put a huge amount of investment into new technologies in nuclear because we need so much energy for things like data centers and to power all the work that we do. So there's a big growth area in some countries. And here in the UK government's made big investment decisions again because of wanting to secure their supply of energy. Also being able to make certain that we have the energy that we need in the future. So I suppose the ask would be for whether Ireland would consider keeping their options open would be more how I would think of it, as to securing supply. It's a little scary when we think about Russia and Ukraine and the impact that has had. It's had a big impact actually on the nuclear industry because of the security of fuel manufacture for nuclear, and it's created huge impact on supply chain and how people operate in that whole nuclear system to make certain that where Russia had previously provided fuel for nuclear reactors, other countries have now sort of had to step in. So that's been interesting.
It's great as well to hear your story this morning. I think for younger people, Claire, and particularly those who, recently we were talking to a student who's been involved in the now Stripe Young Scientists exhibition competition, and for young people who are interested in the scientific field, to hear your story, and especially you talking about the integral role people, be it teachers or family members, played in steering you on your pathway. How important is it to you that young people from places like West Clare see your story and realise there are no limits to where education can take them.
I love the way you've said that, Alan. Thank you. Just where can I start? David, my nephew, David Skerritt, rang me last night. He's a Leaving Cert student, and he said, "Congratulations, Claire, and all my friends send their best wishes." And that meant so much to me, that my story is reaching and touching sort of our younger people in Clare. So if I can inspire others to create a platform to see the world has no boundaries, that technologies you maybe never thought of touching on would be open to you, then that would be a wonderful thing. But even just to inspire people to think about science and engineering, because we need great minds and we need lots of diversity of thought. So having more people enter into the fields of science and engineering is really important. And I would like to say I'm planning to, my offer there is to the schools in Clare that I'd come back over during term time and just be available to you as educators in some way, if I can help by talking to your pupils or being available to have a conversation. I'd love to do that and hopefully reach more people and encourage them into the field of science and engineering.
Well, I think that's a fantastic offer. Schools of Clare, you have heard Clare here this morning on Morning Focus. I think an offer like that from a MBE awarded nuclear scientist from West Clare is one that schools will find hard to turn down. Claire, congratulations once again. It's been brilliant having the opportunity to chat with you about that, and also hearing your story and what brought you to this point of receiving the MBE. And the whole county is very, very proud of you, and I'm sure the day itself is going to be one that's going to be a source of great pride to you and your family and friends. So hope it all goes well. Hope that medal is extra shiny. And thank you for joining me on Morning Focus to have a chat about it. Really appreciate it. That's Claire Gallery Strong with us there on Morning Focus. And well done to her, I have to say.